Well, good morning again. And we're going back to Warsaw this morning for our second visit. Can you hear me? Is it okay? Yeah. Yeah. So last week we really looked at some of the more distant past history of Warsaw. Now today we're going to be looking at the new Warsaw. And the idea here is that suppose you were planning to visit Warsaw, you would like to talk to Agata before you left, because she would tell you all about the city. We're looking forward to her talk. I'm now going to ask our coordinator from Center for European Studies, Kowalewska, to give Agata a proper introduction.
Thank you, Ron. Again, it's nice to see everybody. Agata Kowalewska is our speaker today, and she is an assistant instructional professor and Polish language instructor at UF Center for European Studies. She was born in Warsaw, Poland, and her education started there. She holds MS in geology from the University of Warsaw, MS in geosciences from the University of Arizona, and a PhD in community nutrition from Virginia Tech. She is also a registered dietitian nutritionist. So I'll hand it over to Agata.
Excellent, thank you. Oh, I'm on, so thank you. Will you change my slides? Okay, perfect. So welcome everybody, and I will start with my last name, because I talked to Ron about this, and he said that it's a difficult to pronounce name, and it is, but actually if you translate it, it's very easy. It's almost Smith. So it's somebody who is related to blacksmith. Closer? Okay, perfect. And now it's too loud. Okay, perfect. So you have the title of my talk in English and in Polish, because the city of Warsaw for me is Warszawa. And this is my city, moje miasto. And as Carla mentioned, the reason why I call Warsaw my city is because I was born there, I got my education there, I got married there, and I had few adventures there too. And I go to Warsaw every summer if there is an opportunity. And actually, inspiration for that talk was my visit. So when Carla said that there is an opportunity to talk to Warsaw, I was very happy to oblige. Because a few years ago, I was in Germany, and I was speaking with a young lady who worked in the tourism industry. And she was really surprised that we have electricity in Poland, and there are no polar bears running on the streets, and Poland is not covered with primeval forest. So I was like, okay, so let's dispel some myths, about Poland and about capital city of Poland. So I'm very happy to tell you all exciting things that are happening to Warsaw and how easy it is to travel to Poland and travel around Warsaw. So let's go forward, and that's not how it should be working. Okay. So if you are traveling to Poland, perfect. If you're traveling to Poland from United States, you are most likely flying. I'm guessing you are flying, of course. You can also take a ferry, and it will be a slightly longer trip. And when we are looking at the map of Europe, it looks like Poland is right in the middle. However, most likely when you are looking for information about Poland, it will be put together with Eastern European countries. But it really depends on who is writing the story. Some people will put Poland in the Central Europe, some people will put Poland in the Eastern Europe. And when we are looking at Warsaw, which is that little city right there, the the largest of the red points there, it is not really in the center of Poland, but because of many historical events that happened, there was one of the kings, that I will mention him later on, that decided that this is the most convenient central place to lead all his affairs from. So actually on the map of Poland, Łódź supposed to be the capital city, but there were some other events that made Poland to be the central part. And pretty much starting from the times of that king, Warsaw on and off was the most central, politically oriented, government-oriented, culture-oriented city. And with the historical background, it is still now the center of culture, politics, administration, development, foodie capital of Poland, and definitely a place worth seeing for many reasons. So you are arriving in Warsaw at the Chopin airport, and I have so you walk out of the airplane and that's what you are seeing pretty much. And I have a question for you. And if by raise of hand you can tell me, do you think that the airport in Warsaw was named after Frederick Chopin? Because he is a famous European, and it is appropriate to name airport after him. Chopin visited Poland in his youth and spent his summer there. He was raised and born and raised in Poland and in Warsaw. Or did he fought for Poland during Napoleonic Wars? So who thinks it is an A answer? No one thinks that. Who thinks it's a B answer? Okay. So we have one person, and I realized that there are people online who are thinking about that, but we cannot really see you. And so just follow us, and then later on we can decide, what answer did you thought to be correct. So what about C? He was born and raised in Poland. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people who thinks it's C. What about D? Couple of people. So actually people who thought it's C have the right answer. Chopin was born just outside of Warsaw in Żelazowa Wola. And he was born actually during Napoleonic Wars, but he was too little to fight in them. And because of that, because the first 20 years of his life were spent in Warsaw, and then the other part of his life was spent composing music that it's very heavily influenced by Polish folk music, Poles think about Chopin as most of all being a Polish citizen. So therefore, naming the airport was very appropriate. So you're still at the airport, walking into carousel, picking your luggage, and now if you were planning your trip very carefully, you know that you have multiple options. And one of these options actually can be started right there at the airport. So after you pick your luggage and you want to start traveling through Warsaw, there are a few options how you can get out of the airport into the city. And one of those options is actually using public transportation. And the tickets to get your ticket for using Warsaw public transit is right there at the airport, even before you leave the carousel. So it's public transportation in Warsaw. I will have the map for you in a few slides. It's really extensive. And the nice part of it is that for people who are 70 and above, it's for free. And even if you are a foreigner, as long as you have your passport that shows your age, you can still use that free transit. And the transit in Warsaw includes buses, trams, metro, and trains that are within the Mazovia voivodeship. So it's not only in the city, but it's actually in the city and the vicinities. So, and it's a ticket that actually it's, it's very easy to obtain. You can just get it right there at the one of those little machines. And those machines speak in several languages. So it's not just Polish, but they will have English, French, German, Chinese, and one of the Scandinavian languages. So there are multiple options. And one of the buses that takes you from the airport right into the center of the city is actually bus 175. And that's how they look like. So, and the yellow and red are the colors of the city of Warsaw. So we'll talk in a few slides again about the city of Warsaw and the symbols of Warsaw, and the buses, the trams are also carrying the colors of the city. So we are going forward, and those are the tickets. And here you have all different options. If you are younger than 70, then you can use one of those options. You can buy a ticket for 90 days, 1 day, 3 days, weekend, group tickets. And if you are 70 and above, then you get one of those yellow cards that are free, and you can use them in all the means of public transportation. So it is very convenient. The another nice thing is that if you're traveling with any of your pet companions, or if you have luggage, you don't need to pay extra for it. A luggage and pets go for free for everybody. When you get the ticket, doesn't matter which one of those tickets, and you are going on the metro, you have to validate the ticket. So even if you have a yellow free ticket, you have to put it through in order to get to the underground. If you are on the bus or on the tram or in the train, all you have to do is have the yellow ticket or just have your passport with the that shows your age, and that's enough. So only metro will require you to use the yellow free pass. So let's go forward. Oh, one other thing I forgot to tell. So Warsaw, like many cities, is organized into 2 travel zones. The more central one is zone 1, and more outside one that includes the suburbs of Warsaw is zone 2. So the free ticket or any of the discounted ticket are valid for both of those zones. Okay, we have a ticket to travel through Warsaw. We know that where we are going, but we also need some money for, for food, for gifts, for pleasures. And again, there are multiple ways how you can pay. So if you want to use cash, you can just use your debit card, go to ATM, which in Polish is called bankomat, and get some Polish money. It's relatively easy, and many of them look like that, or it will be just hole in the wall, like in the United States. If you come with cash that you want to exchange into a Polish zloty, there are 2 options. One of them is you can go to the bank and change your money in the bank, but there is an option that actually has a slightly better exchange rate always. And those places are called kantor. So this is a privately owned institution that is certified by Polish bank, and you can exchange your money there. They are spread across one or so. There will have the symbol kantor on the top, and they should have the table like the one you see here with all the different currencies and the price at which you can sell your money and the price at which you can buy the money. And of course, there are Polish banks. This is one of the most famous Polish banks in Warsaw for a simple reason that in 80s, I want to say it was in the 80s, it blew up. So it was completely devastated. There was a gas pipe. That's the official theory. story. I never knew any other, but official story is that there was a gas pipe that was running under the bank, it blew up, and it was very recently reconstructed and being used again as a bank. It's one of those places that people who are in Warsaw use often as a place of meeting because everybody knows where it is. And Ron mentioned that Natalia last week talked about the Palace of Culture and Science. That was a gift of Russia to the Polish people after the Second World War. So if you are at the bank, you can see the palace and vice versa. So we can travel, we have the money. What do we do with it? So I'm taking you back to the airport for a second, because not everybody likes to use public transportation. And if there are family or friends who are picking you up at the airport, you don't have to worry about anything because they will take care of you. But if you are traveling on your own, there are other options than public transport. You can take taxi, Uber, Bolt. Lyft is not that popular, but with Uber we can get anywhere. And when you are picking the taxi, what you want to make sure is that the taxi, actually this image doesn't have that. From the passenger side, there should be information about the rates. So the first kilometer will cost so much money. The second kilometer will cost so much money. And when you get in, you want to make sure that the driver has their certification visible. Very often, drivers in Warsaw will have a dual function. There are Uber or a taxi. If you order the ride on your app on the phone, you probably will get Uber. If you get the taxi at the airport, you pay for the taxi. Taxi is typically slightly more expensive, but it's not a really significant difference. No, and of course, there is Bolt. So are we leaving the airport finally? Yes. So we are treating Warsaw as one of the stops on the way to travel wider in Poland. Or you are using Warsaw as a place to travel to different European countries. As I showed you before, Poland is right in the middle of Europe. So traveling anywhere in Europe from Warsaw is really easy. It can be very inexpensive. You can get a $20 tickets flying from Warsaw to Paris, for example, if you're using the economy airlines. Near Warsaw, there are two airports that are typically serving those economical airlines. One of them is Warsaw Modlin Airport, which has been established several years ago, and it's about 50 kilometers, so about 30 miles away from the central part of Warsaw. And the much newer airport that was opened about 2 years ago, Radom, which is a bit farther. To be perfectly honest, it's not that easy to get to yet. They are planning on opening a train line, so train line that you can also use with that free ticket. And it's about 60 miles from Warsaw. Modlin Airport, Ryanair, and I'm trying to think about, Ryanair is definitely the most popular of those cheap airlines in Europe, and that airline works from Modlin Airport. So if you want to go to Prague, or you want to go to London, or want to go anywhere else in Europe, probably you will be traveling from Chopin Airport to Modlin Airport. And you can take a train, you can take a bus, you can take a taxi or Uber. But going back to Warsaw. So I told you a lot about public transportation in Warsaw, and I have my second question. So one part of this question is how many residents are in Warsaw and what percentage of that population is using public transport. So my 4 options for you are, the first one is that Warsaw has then less than 1 million, and about 20% of that 1 million is using public transportation. The second option is that Warsaw has just about 2 million, under 2 million, and about half of the population is using public transit every day. Third option is that Warsaw is less than 1 million people, but still about half of the population is using public transportation every day. Or Warsaw is about 2.5 million, and about a quarter of that population is using public transit. So who would like to vote for number 1 or option A? Okay. Who thinks it's number B? Okay, 2, 3 people. C option, just over 1 million, 3 people. And D, 2.5, so 1, 2, 6. Okay, 6. So actually Warsaw has right now just under 2 million people. And every day, so it's 1,800,000. And every day, half of that population is using public transit. If we are looking at the weekly rates, 3/4 of population are using public transit. So if you're in Warsaw and you are using public transportation, there's so many options that you can talk to people who live there and ask them questions. And the good news is that about 1/3 of population of Warsaw speaks English. So that's easy. It's primarily younger population, but it's still 1/3. So every third person you meet, you can easily communicate with. And language education in Poland typically starts in 5th grade. So by the time when they can be allowed to go by themselves on the streets, they can speak English. So this is a map of public transit in Warsaw, and the map is also linked to URL. If you're interested in discovering, you can do it on your own. You can use it on your mobile devices. As you can see, multiple of those lines are served by more than one bus, and it can be a bus, a train, and the metro that will take you from place A to B. So that's it's just a resource for you that it's attached to the slides. So we are going back to Chopin, just for 1 second. So definitely, Poles are very proud to be able to call Chopin one of their own. There is institute that it's devoted to history, his heritage, and teaching people about Chopin, and also presenting his music. Since 1927, I believe it was 26 or 27, every year in Warsaw, there is a huge competition that it's world-renowned and recognized, and the pianists from all over the world are coming to Warsaw, competing in the Chopin musical concert. So that's something that it's special, that doesn't, it's rather difficult to get tickets into, but something that you can do pretty much every Sunday, starting from mid-May till the almost end of September. You can go to Łazienki Park, and they have Chopin music recitals done by known pianists. Some of them are actual laureates of those competitions, Chopin competition. All you have to do is bring a blanket or a pull-out chair and enjoy the music. If you decide to travel slightly outside of Warsaw and go to the little palace, it's more like a residence than palace, in Żelazowa Wola, where Chopin was born, they have their concert under the roof, so you don't have to worry about rain or too much sun. And again, they have multiple concerts over the summer months that everybody can enjoy. They also have programs for outside of summer months. And if you're interested, you can use any one of those two links and plan, visit to Żelazowa Wola according to your schedule. So going back into Warsaw, because that part is sometimes confusing people who are visiting Warsaw. So like any city, Warsaw grew over the centuries since it was established, and that happened about in second part of the 1200s, so end of the 13th century. Warsaw grew from incorporating surrounding little villages into its municipality. So first there were parts near the river that, I'm sure you noticed that pattern, that river in the, in the historical times was the means of transit. It was the means of selling goods and buying goods. So many cities grew around the river. The same was for Warsaw. So at the beginning, it was a little village that was near to the river. Then it became a seat of the princes of Mazovia area. It started growing. And then at the end of the 16th century, beginning of 17th century, a king, Zygmunt III Waza, so Zygmunt III Waza, decided to move seat of the kings from Kraków to Warsaw. And from that time, Warsaw started growing, incorporating all the surrounding little villages. So now one of the districts of Warsaw is called Ursynów. If we look 400 years ago, not even that far, if we look 150 years ago, Ursynów was a village that was part of the Warsaw. The same was for Wesoła, Wawer, Rembertów. All those names that are currently districts of Warsaw used to be villages. So if you are traveling through Warsaw and somebody asks you, do you want to go to Mokotów? They don't ask you to leave Warsaw. I ask you if you are going to that particular district of Warsaw. So Warsaw has 18 districts, and people who are more familiar with the city, like Uber or taxi drivers, they often use those names. So it's not to confuse you, they are trying to be helpful. But it also requires of us tourists to know that if we are going to Wawer, we are still in Warsaw. We're just going to that specific district of Warsaw. So, how to visit the city? You already are in it and you are planning your trip. So of course there are multiple options, and you can do it. Buy a good guidebook and plan on your own trip, or you can work with one of the tourist centers that are in Warsaw, and I will talk about them. So here we have the symbol of Warsaw. It's a siren that it's defending a city from people who may potentially want to destroy it and harm the inhabitants. There is a legend that goes with that story, but we are concentrating more on the current Warsaw than historical one. So if you are interested, we can keep it for later. So if you are do-it-yourself person, you have your guide, you want to travel through also on your own without having somebody telling you what you need to see, you decided on your own what you want to see. City of Warsaw has a specific transit lines that are devoted into seeing the city. So they are three methods that you can use those lines. You can travel through the river. You can take an old-fashioned tram or a modern tram, or you can travel by bus. Those lines are designed to take you to the most interesting touristic place in Warsaw, places that are worth seeing. Again, the link, the title of the slide is linked to the tourist information that explains how the system works and what you can see, what you can, how you can travel from any of those interesting points by bus, by train, how can you traverse the river and go from the left side at Warsaw to right side at Warsaw. And the other thing that may confuse some, it's not only that Warsaw is divided into those 18 districts, but Warsaw is divided between Warsaw and Prague. So very often when people are talking about the Warsaw that it's on the east side of the river, on our right-hand side, they refer to that whole area as Prague. It has nothing to do with the Czech Prague, which is, city on its own, beautiful. It's just the east side of Warsaw. And my husband and I, we have always that banter. He's from Prague, so I'm from Warsaw. Vistula. Vistula River or Wisła. Polish word is Wisła, the English name is Vistula. So if you are, if you don't want to do it on your own, if you would rather have professional help in how to see Warsaw, City of Warsaw has their official tourist office. Again, it's linked here if you want to use them, and they have multiple topics which you can use to see the Warsaw. So if you are somebody who likes to eat, maybe you want to design your traveling route by restaurants. And Warsaw has multiple national cuisines that you can follow. If you want to go with Polish cuisine, design your trip according to Polish restaurant. But maybe you like Georgian cuisine. Go ahead, pick Georgian restaurants and you can follow Warsaw while eating in Georgian restaurants. What about Thai food, Indian food? So all those different ethnic cuisines are in Warsaw and you can use them to travel through the city. Maybe you are vegan or vegetarian. Warsaw gained, over the last 5 years, Warsaw gained about 100 new vegan restaurants. So if you want to go vegan and see the city, why not? If you have one day in Warsaw, the Bureau can pick for you the things that you absolutely have to see while in Warsaw. You have more time, pick a 3-day option. So what if you like to shop? Some people like shop. There's an option that you can visit all the large shopping malls. Some of them are really beautiful design. My personal favorite is a shopping mall that it's called Golden Terraces. The shopping mall is built as a big glass bubble, and it's particularly beautiful when it's raining because that glass roof turns into a waterfall and you are standing under the waterfall. So it's lovely. If you're in Warsaw, you have to go there. So, but there's another very interesting shopping experience in Warsaw, if you want like that. So, at the end of the communistic era and the beginning of the new, 1990s, one of the Warsaw athletic stadions was turned into a market, large open air market. And it became the largest open market in Europe. And there is this saying that on that market you could buy mother and a father. But eventually Poland changed and Warsaw changed, and they really didn't want to have that huge unorganized open market in the center of the city. And also occupying one of the athletic venues for the sports events. So what they have done, they took all the vendors from there, all thousands of vendors who were there, and they moved them to a different location. It's called Marywilska, and the particular address is Marywilska 44. So Marywilska is the name of the street. 44 is the parcel location. But what it is, it's a huge shopping mall. And you can find there, again, you can buy mother and a father if you want to. And they are merchants from pretty much all around the globe who sell their goods there. So you can go to beautifully designed shopping centers like the Golden Terraces, or you can go to Marywilska and spend probably a fraction of the money and buy as many things and as beautiful as you would at the other places, but you don't pay the premium price because Złote Tarasy, the Golden Terraces, are in the city center, whereas Marywilska is on the outskirts. So location, location, location. So my other question, has Warsaw always been the capital city of Poland? Because we are talking about the center of culture, politics, administration, everything. And I have, again, 4 options for you. Yes, Warsaw was always capital city. No. Before Warsaw, the capital city was in Krakow. C option is yes, but Polish kings sometimes live in other cities than Warsaw. And the last option, D, is no, there were few other cities before Warsaw became the capital city. So how many people think that Warsaw was always capital city of Poland? Option A. Okay. B, no, before Warsaw, Kraków was capital city. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then C, yes, Poland was always capital city, but the kings live in some other places too. Not necessarily. And the last one is D. No, there were several other cities before Warsaw became capital city. Okay, there are 2 people, and those people are right. So yes, before Warsaw, Kraków was the capital city of Warsaw, but before Kraków, there were Gniezno and possibly Poznań. So there were at least 1 that we know about, and possibly that it's still debate about Poznań, which will make it 2. So I told you about the king, King Zygmunt III Waza, who decided that it will be more convenient to actually live in Warsaw and conduct all his business from Warsaw than from Kraków. And there were several reasons for that. And also for that reason, that king is the most loved king by Krakowians. They hate him, but the Warszawians, of course, love him. So in the late 1500s, the then current seat of kings in Kraków at the Wawel hill burned down. And the part that of the castle that was most devastated was actually the quarters of the king and the queen. I don't know why that happened. And so that was one reason. The other reason is that actually Zygmunt III Waza was from the Scandinavian dynasty, and he was still hoping to become a king of Sweden. So for him, it was easier to communicate with Scandinavia being in Warsaw, which is farther to the north than Kraków, than from Kraków. The other reason that is also often brought up as the reason to move the capital city from Kraków to Warsaw was the fact that all the political decisions were being conducted by the aristocracy in the area of Warsaw, not in the area of Kraków. So for that very reason, King picked up his court, he picked up his wealth and all that belonged and moved it to Warsaw. However, even though the king and the court were in Warsaw, all the kings were still coronated and they were buried in Kraków. And that has not happened till the time when Poland disappeared from the map of the world or map of Europe in late 1700s, when the country was a partition between Russia, Prussia, and Austro-Hungarian Empire. So Poland disappears from the map of Europe, and then when it appears again in 1918, Warsaw is again the capital city of Poland in the name, because there's really no document that states that Warsaw is capital city. However, I told you already about the bank, that it's in central part of Warsaw as being one of the favorite spots for people to meet if they are setting up the meeting. The other place is the column of the King Sigmund III. So if you are in Warsaw and you are trying to meet with friends or with the guide, Sigmund will be probably the place where they will ask you to go. Because if you are there, particularly on the nice warm day, not necessarily summer day, but warm day, those steps around the columns, everywhere around here, including that little brick wall, are covered by people who are waiting to meet their counterparts. So this is definitely the favorite place in Warsaw to meet. And Sigmund is also a good orientation spot because it's, being relatively tall. You can see it from many places, particularly if you are in the old town. So talking about the old town, and I'm not sure if Natalia mentioned that part, but anyway, so we were looking at the picture of the old town, but actually the historical old town in Warsaw is reconstruction. So during the Second World War, right at the end, right before the Red Army traveled through Poland on their way to Berlin, there was a political struggle of keeping Poland either a still democratic country or becoming a communistic country. A Polish government in the exile in London decided that one of the big points into keeping Poland a democratic entity will be to have the capital city freed from German occupation by the Polish army without the help of the Red Army. So they started in August of 44. They started the Warsaw Uprising. Because of the uprising, or the fallout of the uprising, the consequence of the fallout of the uprising was that Germans completely destroy the center of Warsaw. So after the uprising, the city center, the old town, the new town, which is also old, it's just they are named in a confusing way, look like that. And after the front already passed through or so, there was a group of people who decided that it's a perfect moment to actually rebuild the Warsaw in a way how they envision it. And that was that movement, that organization of people who are trying to build the historical part of Warsaw begin their activities before the actual end of war. So they were able to make their decision without influence of Russia or Moscow. So they make their plans, they started rebuilding Warsaw, and that act of rebuilding lasted for a few years. But now we have a historically looking old city that it's actually all reconstruction. They use the old bricks, they use the old plans, but the city by itself is a reconstruction of the historical city. It's not the actual the original historical buildings. So completely changing the topic. We are not in historical parts. We are absolutely in new parts of Warsaw, and we are eating now. And so Warsaw has its own, or actually primarily Warsaw, has its own special chains of fast food. And they are like home-cooked meals. They are very inexpensive. They are definitely not Michelin star, but they are what a person would cook at home. So there are actually pretty delicious meals, and as a student, I survive eating in places like that. The type of this restaurant is called Milkbark. So it's milk, it's mleko, so bar mleczny, it's milk bar. They are in different places of Warsaw. They may have extra things added to their name, milk bar. Like this one is called vegetarian milk bar. But that name, milk bar, will be always very obviously placed somewhere above the door, on the windows, so you cannot miss it. So yes, you can go to a pierogi chain called Zapiecek, delicious pierogi, but for 5 pieces of pierogi, you will pay equivalent of, I don't know, $8. If you go to the milk bar for the same amount of pierogis, maybe not served in such a beautiful, pottery, you'll pay $2. So there is a difference. So I told you that you have several options if you don't want to organize your trip to Warsaw on your own. So one is the official tourist bureau of Warsaw, which is linked here, but there are also other tourist bureaus that exist in Warsaw, and you can choose to go with them if if the offer that they are presenting is more to your liking. So this one is why I chose this one, for example. They are taking you around Warsaw in the retro vehicles. So when I was a kid, that was in the late 60s, 70s, those were the mobiles that were on the streets of Warsaw and Poland. So that little vehicles was called Niska. There's no English name to translate it to. And there was the old buses that actually, when I was a student, or yes, elementary school student, bus like that took me from the place where I live to my school. So I have a sentimental look at those vehicles. They are, of course, retrofitted with the newer engines, and they run much smoother and they don't pollute as much. But the outside look is still, kept to their old perfection. And they also have air conditioning installed, which wasn't the case in the 60s. So now I want to finish this presentation with a few pieces about myself, because I told you this is my city, and why do I consider Warsaw to be my city? So actually, I told you that I'm from Warsaw and my husband is from Prague, but to be perfectly honest, I was also born in Prague. The hospital where I was born is on the left, on the east side of the river. And it's actually my first walk after I was born were into Warsaw Zoo, because Warsaw Zoo is located right next to the Prague hospital. And you walk from the hospital to the zoo through beautiful park. So I was born there. My parents lived just outside of Warsaw, so my elementary school was not in Warsaw, but then my high school was already in Warsaw. And the interesting thing about that particular high school, the high school of Prince Józef Poniatowski, was that it was located next to the main central militia station in Warsaw. So when you are hearing about Wałęsa and Solidarność, so often when they were brought to be talked to, they were actually next to my school. So that, a historical location if we're looking from the most recent history of Poland. So after high school, I studied geology at the University of Warsaw, and above there you have a building of Faculty of Geology in Warsaw. And that building is actually, if you are traveling from the Chopin Airport to the city center, you are going right by my building. And there's a large dinosaur that is standing in front of it. So again, you cannot miss it. And then when I was about to graduate from the university and become a geologist with a diploma, I got married. And that's the place where we got married. It was actually a chapel that it's located next to the King's Castle in the old city of Warsaw. And from there, everything else is history. But when I got married, I actually got married into a family of architects. Family of architects who have a long connection to Warsaw. And those are my bragging rights. So it's not my family, it's family of my husband. So in 1992, my husband's father and his godfather and one other friend established an architectural firm. And that firm designed and built the Warsaw University Library. And when you are traveling through Warsaw, and particularly when you are seeing the highlights, you are probably going to be taken into that place. So unfortunately, to walk inside of the library, that space with those beautiful columns, is only open to people who are holding University of Warsaw, either faculty or student card. But you can walk into the roof, which is a garden. So this is just a little, piece of the garden. The entire roof, all the glass structure that you see when you are inside, are covered with greenery. And Marek Budzyński and Adam Kowalewski, my husband's father, and Zbyszek Badowski, they were responsible for designing and building that structure. My other bragging rights is the High Court in Warsaw. So again, the same firm of architects was responsible for designing and building of the High Court in Warsaw. And because that High Court is reaching over one of the arteries in Warsaw, everybody has the opinion. So everybody loves the library. But High Court, it's people either hate it or they love it. I like it. So, and next to the High Court, there is the monument of the Warsaw uprising that happened in 1944. And it's incorporated into columnade of the High Court. Going back to the uprising for a second, if you're in Warsaw on August 1st, when there is a I just lost the word. Celebration of the moment of remembering the uprising. At 5 in the afternoon, the whole city stops. So everybody who is in the city stop whatever they are doing. The sirens are on, and then for a minute, the Warsaw does not move. And that happens every year for a minute at 5 o'clock. If you are ever there, it's extremely moving. So that will be all. I hope I convince you that this is a city worth seeing and definitely nothing to be afraid of. They have everything we have here, and it's very easy to see the city and from the city rest of Poland. Thank you.
Thank you, Agata. You might keep your microphone on because they may have some questions. Question? Yes.
Thank you. Did the library that you just showed survive the war, or was it rebuilt?
It is newly built. So the design happened in the 80s, in 90s, and they built it in the 90s. It's a new building.
And
There's
that's,
another person.
I just wanted to follow up on that library. Our friend Roy Hunt is here, and I noticed it almost looked like columns were built into that. Is that the way it looked to you, Roy? Yeah. So they incorporated columns, that not the columns that you would find in Greece or Rome, but the structure in the front of the library.
Yeah, it's columnate.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Right.
Mhm.
It looks to me like it's influenced by neoclassical columns, which would be Greek or Roman.
Yeah. Mhm.
Thank you. It makes me want to
Okay.
visit. It makes me want to visit Warsaw. But I had one question, please. Have the influx of Ukrainian refugees affected, have they moved up as far as Warsaw, and is it affecting the city?
Only in a positive way, I would say. So at the beginning of the conflict, there were a few months where the central part of Warsaw, particularly near the central railway station, there were many camps for refugees. But that dissolved within 2 months. And right now, people from Ukraine are incorporated into the city by itself. They work, they go to school. And actually, thanks to them, many services that were previously missing had employee. So it was only positive, to be perfect. So for us, horrible as war is, actually having new workforce in Warsaw was wonderful. And right now, they are just Warsavians. So I don't know how many of them came particularly to Warsaw, but it was over 2 million people who came to Poland after the beginning of the war. And many of them stay in Warsaw because Warsaw had infrastructure to hold them. Mm-hmm. Sure.
Other questions? Yeah.
Wanted to say I visited Warsaw 5 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and the you didn't mention when you talked about a little bit about Chopin, but the seats at the bus stops that play the Chopin music.
Uh-huh. Yes, yes. I didn't, there's 40 minutes that I only had. So yes. So if you are in the places that in somehow are related to Chopin, and one of them is also by that monument of Warsaw Uprising, which is not really related to Chopin, but it's a place where many tourists visit. They have benches that you can sit on, but they also have a music apparatus built in. So you can press the button and listen to Chopin while watching what's around you.
I just had one comment. It's based. I was there first during the communist era,
Okay.
and the person was traveling with me, and I were invited to a home in Warsaw for dinner. And the host called and asked if we would look in our mini bars and see if there was any beer, which there was, because they were unable to buy any. All the beer in Warsaw had been sent to the miners to quell their uprising.
Oh, okay. Yeah, unfortunately, right now, most of the companies that used to be Polish brewing companies are owned by Carlsberg. But the names are still there, but the beer is made by the Carlsberg Corporation. That's unfortunate.
Just a couple questions. You mentioned earlier in your presentation about changing your money.
Uh-huh.
Poland is Poland on the euro?
No, Poland still has their own currency. It's called złoty. And currently the exchange rate is about 4.5 zloty to $1.
Oh, that's interesting. And of the three methods of transportation, there was taxi, Uber, and then the third one is
Bolt.
Bolt. And what is that?
It's like Uber.
Just
Basically,
a
like
Polish company.
It's European. It's not just Polish.
Ah.
It's in most of the European countries.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And just one other question: when you showed the railway stations, they were so clean. There was no writing on the walls.
Oh,
Is
graffiti.
that still true?
Yeah.
Graffiti.
It depends. Metro system has almost no graffiti. So if you are in the underground system, I may have seen graffiti once in 20 years.
Ah.
If you go to the above the ground railway system, then you do have graffiti.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's part
That's
of the
a
culture.
part of way of life. Yes.
Yeah, that's
Well, thank you so much. This
You.
has been very interesting. And of course, next week we're moving on to Vienna. And I think the first talk will feature the music culture of Vienna. It should be very interesting. See you then.